Well, welcome. This is really a good crowd. I'm not going to do a long introduction for Tony because I think most of you know Tony pretty well. I think the last time I introduced him, I told you that I've introduced him more than any other speaker that we've had at the J.C. Ralston since I've been here. I get to introduce him yet again this year because coming up September 21st and 22nd, we have a celebration here. It's a 10-year anniversary for the Ruby McSwain Education Center. 10 years ago September, Bob Lyons and at that time Dean Oblinger and Chancellor Mary Ann Fox were cutting the ribbon right out here. You've seen the picture up on the entranceway there. Well, the evening before, the Friday evening before, September 21st, we're dedicating the Lath House. Many of you got a chance to see it this evening, or you've seen it recently. We're in the process of planning it. The walls are in. We'll get the walkways finished soon. It'll be ready, sparkling, to dedicate in September. Well, we're having our first curator or caretaker of the Arboretum presentation that night. And you know who that was. It was Tony Avent. And so Tony Avent will be back speaking again that evening, September 21st. We'll have, there'll be a meal with it. It'll be a big time. The next day, all of the former directors and interim directors will be here. And we know JC will be here too. And so that'll be a great day as well. So that's my introduction. Tony, we're looking forward to this topic. And somewhere I believe it's a good enough title. Rednecks to rocket science, botanizing in western Alabama.
I do appreciate so many people coming out on this wonderful night. It's a great night to be outside. And if I wasn't here, I'd probably be out in the garden doing something about flashlight. I did have to bring a few catalogs tonight. I had some people ask, and I assume there's some Penn State fans that would still like a catalog. There is a box over here. No, you Penn State guys are bad. I was telling one of them on email, one of the few that didn't use extremely foul language, that we hired Tim over here right out of Penn State, and so I knew it wasn't but just a few crazy people up there. That there was a lot of great Penn State grads, and thank goodness they came through to rescue us from the ones I call nutcases. I finally got the guy to admit. The guy called me back. He was so upset that the article came out in the paper, and I called them nutcases. I said, well, let me let you listen to some of the messages they left. He said, that's okay. He said, off the record, we call them nutcases too. So, why don't we go ahead and kill the lights? And as I like to share a lot of these plant explorations, I usually wind up sharing the overseas ones, but tonight we're here in the old USA, so we're not looking as much here in the USA for new species as we are for diversity within a species. And that's one of the things that really has fascinated me as I explore around, is that so often we know the plant from one group of genetics or from one colony, we assume we know the entire species. And when I started plant exploration, that was one of the first things I realized, is diversity within most species, not all, was extremely large. And we just were missing a lot of neat plants. Who is that? Yeah, they look really big, don't they? When you go out around the country. Now, not to say that we'll never find new species, because for those of you who got our e-newsletter, one of the neat things that happened a couple of months ago is a plant that we had found probably 15 years ago, just a couple of counties over near Southern Pines, and it was a little acerrum. We found it growing with pitcher plants. And I've seen enough acerums to know they don't grow with pitcher plants. And so we started contacting the people and said, please go down and look at this. Well, it got named as a brand new species, Acerrum psoriae, just a couple of months ago. So, which when we think we found everything in our local area, we really haven't. It often just takes that I'm somebody that is not used to looking at dead plants in a plant mausoleum to realize that, hey, you know, it may look the same once it's flat, but when it's growing, it's really quite different. So our trip was last year, just a little bit later than this, and we had several years early botanized the eastern half. And this year I had a nice excuse. I was doing a talk down in Mobile. So we headed down. But one of the things that's always interested me about Alabama, if you take a look at the Appalachian Mountains, look where they end. They end right around here. Well, if we zero in a little closer, what is that? Tuscaloosa, Alabama. It's an amazing area because all the plants that were forced when the glaciers came down the Appalachians to retreat from the cold weather wound up right here around Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Hence, there's just an incredible diversity there. So that was really going to be one of our main focuses. So here we're a little bigger. You can see it backing out. Look at the Appalachians come down, and the tip is right there. So all along those areas, there's just incredible refuge here for plants, many of which, again, have not been found. In the Tuscaloosa area, Bibb County, 8 new species were discovered within the last decade that have already been documented, that were never known before. That's absolutely amazing that we're finding that. And just because nobody had gone in there that really knew what they were looking for. So we're heading down, again, not really planning to make much in the way of stops on the way down to Mobile, but we just happened to be heading down the interstate doing what I call botanizing at 65 and looked out on the interstate and there is a yucca. Now, I'm a big collector of Yucca filamentosa, and I've never seen one with black leaves before. So screeching halt we come to right on the interstate and got out, and sure enough, the thing has absolutely black foliage. And so we were able to grab cuttings and hop back in the van before the highway patrol accosted us and have those growing now. A friend that was with me, Hans Hansen from up in Michigan, got one too. And both of ours have remained absolutely black since we rooted them and got them planted out in the garden. So this is something incredible. It turns out a month later after I get back, I'm talking to the director of the Mobile Botanic Garden and asked him about it. And he said, yeah, they're right in that one little area up there. Why has nobody ever done anything with this? What's going on? I'm still unconvinced that every plant that we see labeled filamentosa is really filamentosa. I think there's probably either in the middle of speciating or there's 2 or 3 species that have been mixed together in the taxonomist. Again, you're identifying a dead pressed yucca. It's just really hard to see those subtle differences. But when you see that in the garden, I think this one has just amazing garden potential. There it is a little closer. I mean, absolutely beyond anything I've seen. You know, you wonder when you get out, well, is that something, this environmental, this growing that's just in this area? Absolutely not. So real excited about that one. We'll trial it out for a few years, and then if it's good, that'll go in the lab and be mass produced. Coming on down, one more stop before we hit Mobile, Butler County, Alabama, south of Birmingham. Just drove off in the woods, tired of driving, let's take a break. Just happened we caught Adamascus in full bloom. And I talked about species diversity. Look within this. Look how, large flower. I mean, this flower was a good, probably 4 inches across, maybe a little more than 4. But look at the rounded petals as opposed to this one. Much longer petals. So we made probably 4 or 5 little selections, and these grow in clumps of like 200 or 300 bulbs. Just an amazing spring ephemeral, also native here in the Raleigh area. And then down, do the talk in Mobile. So now we're heading back on our real trip. And this is an area that I found on the internet that sounded interesting in Baldwin County, Alabama. Baldwin County is up from Mobile, so it's still a fairly low area. And this is a nature conservancy property called Splinter Hill. And absolutely one of the neatest places I've ever been. You get out and you can see, you sort of walk back in there, not anything real exciting. And then all of a sudden you walk up on these incredible clumps of the white top pitcher, Sarracenia leucophylla, and just looking at the variation within that. Here's a clump that is in not quite full bloom, and yet here's another clump where you've got a pitcher and a bloom, or here's a clump with no flowers and all pitchers, all within just a matter of a few feet. Just incredible to see. And the area is very dry now. Obviously, it has moisture down below it, but on top it's like walking in the desert, even in late March. There's a flower, open a little bit, for those that have never seen pitcher plant flowers, just incredible. And the diversity within those. Here we have a dark red, a sort of a reddish orange. Here, just almost a wine-colored red. Just, again, growing almost side by side. Fascinating inside how pitcher plants, here's the pollen, and below it, where we just looked, it has this actually little cup. And when the pollen finishes and the seed develops, the seed fall and are held in that cup until fall, and then the seed are dumped out and then they come up. So a wonderful little device to sort of catch the seed. So if you're there, when a pitcher plants with the seed season, they're pretty easy. You just take the cup and they're all right there. You don't have to pick them up off the ground, which I thought was pretty neat.
Wow.
Backing up a little bit, is that incredible? It's truly a religious experience. If you've never seen anything like this, to see as far as the eye can go, just pitcher plants. And you cannot literally take a step without stepping on it. It's just, I've never seen a stand like this. Obviously, very well maintained, generally by burning. This is generally a very nutrient-poor area. That's where Sarracenias grow. They hate fertilizer. So that's the reason they gather the insects, they dissolve them, and that's the food. Just amazing. I took more shots on this. It's good I didn't have to buy film anymore. It was bad. Also found some of the wonderful droseras that catch the flies by using almost a fly paper technique. What was really neat is when you walked through the areas, and the areas just absolutely ended. It was like somebody had put a fence up, and the habitat, while it looked the same, all of a sudden was woodwardia, our native Virginia chain fern, and the osmundas. And not a single pitcher plant past this point. They were just everywhere, and then they end. So something in the hydrology changed, or something in the makeup of the soil changed. Really amazing. Coming up then a little further, we made our first stop in a woodland area. This is an area that had been logged, and so you're basically having to cut overs. Rhododendron, what we thought was canescent, I understand since this will actually be named as a new species from this area, was there by the thousands. And again, uprooted. Here's like 10-foot plants laid on the side where the track loaders have come in to load the logs. But not a lot other than the azalea, but it was fascinating to see those. All right, here we're coming up now. We're a little further north in Monroeville. So we're halfway between, if you know Alabama, Mobile on the coast, southern coast, and Montgomery south central. And basically what we do is we drive along until we see something interesting, and you look out. And so here we drove by an area, a pretty remote area, and all of a sudden we're seeing the wonderful red buckeye, Aesculus pavia, in bloom. And that too, the diversity is amazing. From here we go, the dark red, just a beautiful little small native tree with a little more orange in it. So just when you see tens of thousands of these in bloom, the opportunity to get in there and make selections is really quite incredible. There's that Yucca filamentosa again. I collect this everywhere I go. So and compare this. Does that look like the same species we saw earlier? Not at all. No, something is very, very wrong here. This one, very long, wavy leaves, almost like a recurvifolia, but it's hairy. So it's got to be filamentosa. So again, these are very nice because underground they produce all their stems. And so you can go take a simple underground cutting without ever disturbing the plant above ground. Amazing phlox in this area. Just absolutely everywhere. And they were real thin. You usually see about 2 stems. And just what we did, we went in and got cuttings, rooted cuttings off these. Just look at the diversity here. That's sort of a light lavender. Here almost a light blue. Now we didn't know what phlox this was because there's only a couple phlox in the area. There's Phlox pilosa and Phlox floridana. Well, we thought, well, maybe this is something new. I don't know. It wasn't hairy, so it couldn't be Phlox pilosa. So we brought them back, planted them out, and this is a rooted cutting I brought back less than a year ago in our garden today. It's a clump this big. We took it in, keyed it out this week. No pilosa, absolutely no pilosa at all. But that's the only thing it keys to. Floridana is completely different. So something is weird because pilosa has to have pilose hairs. Pilosa also is a stoloniferous runner. This is a tight clumper. So somebody needs to work on the phlox of Alabama. This is part of the problem with botanizing. When I was in school, I thought everything fit nicely into the keys. That's what the professors all told me. It's when you key it out, it's very simple. It just goes boom, 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 and it has to be this or this. Well, the reality is, plants don't read keys, and they don't fit in keys. So pilosa is the closest thing, but it's a clumping, non-pilose pilosa. But an amazing plant. This is a clone. You can't hardly see it here, but the stems are dark purple. And this is it actually 2 days ago. So this is something, if it looks as good next year, this will be cutting material and will be wound up in the nursery very quickly. Right inside those phlox, when the woods opened up, totally different habitat. It was just amazing. This is the wonderful native sable miner. Also here with needle palm growing together, which is really neat. I've seen them in a couple of places together. Overstory of the sables is Halesia. I thought this is Caroliniana. I now know it's Halesia diptera, the wonderful large flower. There's a close-up of the picture. Just in bloom all over us. And you generally, it's weird. I never expected to find Halesia with sable palms. That's just weird. And it's just not at all, because I always assumed Halesia is normally an upland plant, but here we're finding it in a very low area. Jack in the pulpits I've always been fascinated by, and here, of course, we know our natives, but count the leaves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, the taxonomists all say there's no such thing as Erythema cornatum. I beg to differ, because if there's ever been Erythema cornatum, that's cornatum. That is not triphyllum. And we've grown these from seed, and you take a 5-leaf, and you get 5 leaves. Now, where people get screwed up is when they're juvenile, they only have 3 leaves. When they become adult, they get 5 leaves. So this is one the taxonomists need to revisit. But it was so neat to see a lot of cornatum in this area. The plant I had really gone for, one of the few southern trillium species I'd never been able to find in the wild, was Trillium staminium. Named because of the propeller stamens. I mean, just wonderful. They just twist. It's a sepals. It's a wonderful plant. And this was our first opportunity to find a plant we would find many times later through the trip, and actually quite prevalent, growing here among the sable miners, which again is just weird. I don't generally think of trilliums growing under palms. That just seems very strange. Great place there, and I haven't told them yet, we found an Asarum Shuttleworthii there, which is 4 counties south of anywhere it's ever been found before, so we'll have to send that note to somebody. Clark County, Alabama, Thomasville, we're heading up towards the Montgomery area. Stopped in this wonderful area. We noticed the hills were very steep. Anybody know what this is? Alyssium floridanum. That's the way it looks in the wild. Completely different than what we think of in our garden. An amazing plant to walk through an Alyssium forest. That was just very, very cool. Not quite in flower. I'd love to go back and catch this in full flower. That would have to be amazing to see what kind of diversity you could find there in the wild. The only other semi-exciting find we found here, a variegated Japanese honeysuckle. Anybody get excited about that? Yeah. I actually did leave that there, but I came back with a photo for my Japanese friends that like everything variegated. Heading from there up toward Birmingham, just south, stopped in Maplesville. I thought that was an interesting, and we were really fascinated by some of the eating places there. The South has just got some of the most creative eating places you can imagine. So we did have to stop for a home-cooked meal at the Fat Girls Cafe, and let me tell you, they're fat for a reason. They know how to cook. That was some really fine food and very friendly people. Just amazing. Right near there, the thing that really got us excited were these giant bird's foot violets, Viola pedea, with some of the absolute largest flowers I've ever seen in the species. No bicolors at all, no whites. This thing, everything was this lavender blue, but the flowers were absolutely huge. And we did get a plant of this that survived and doing very well. So here we are now in Bibb County. This is the area where all that weird stuff is found. And the reason the stuff's been found here, and one of the things we learned very early about plants is you have certain habitats you look for. We've learned for trilliums, the best habitat is old tires and beer cans. You always, in the South, find trilliums growing over there. So here we're driving down the road, we took this little cut through, and there's our habitat, and darn, we got out, and there are the trilliums. It is amazing how much we find. And so we got it, we look at these, now this should be Trillium staminium. But I'm looking at them and, all right, we got a problem. We don't have as much twist in there. Now staminium generally has a fairly narrow leaves. We walk a little further, and we got these. Now that's not staminium, that's cuniatum. And the more we looked, we got these things that are sort of half and half. So I'm pretty sure that we have found a natural hybrid which has never been documented between cuniatum and staminium. See, we get things like this that have the cuniatum petals. They don't fit either one, because cuniatum generally has a more rounded leaf, this has a more pointed leaf. So it'll take us a few years of growing some of these in the garden to know for 100%, and then we'll pollinate them myself and then grow the seed out to be sure. But I mean, just again, it doesn't look like either one. That looks like what I would think if I crossed the two together we would get. And they're just coming up in the garden now, so a couple more weeks and we'll get a little better idea as to what we found. And then you find really weird things. That's what interests me, the things that you just like, what the heck is that? Now, is that a one-year aberration? We don't know. I'll tell you here in a couple more weeks, but certainly that one did come home with us. And some really nice tipularities, always looking for different variation here. Here, normally the leaf is more of a green to a purple. Here we found this beautiful silver with nice purple veining, and we did get this, and this is doing quite well. And found some really nice populations of Iris verna, and some real good dark forms. So again, we'll see if that's any different from what we grow in the native populations here. And we're still in Bibb County, a little different area in West Blount. Now this is getting close to the area. What's neat about Bibb County, it has what's called the Dolomite Glades. It's a high limestone, very rocky area that goes for about 30 miles. And that's where just stuff was weird. Just stuff doesn't look like anything else. That is another Yucca filamentosa. Totally different than the other two. Remember the other one weaved, and one had blue boat-shaped leaves. This one, very upright leaves. And just a massive patch going right by the road. So again, we'll see how that looks down the road. And we're just moving a little ways now. This is right outside the glades. This is a population of all Yucca filamentosas. Again, completely different from the others. Look how that looks. So here we've looked at 4 different groups of the same species, and yet dramatically different. These were very fast offsetters. They just look very different, and I'm pretty sure these will hold the characteristics in cultivation as well. This is a plant. This is a little aster. I took a cutting off. It was just coming out of the ground. Didn't know what it was. I just know the stems were nice and dark. And I took that, brought it back. That's it in bloom in our garden this fall. That was after the flowers had faded. This is Aster pilosus, species I had never grown before. But that's it 2 months after the flowers. That was taken around Christmas time. Most amazing aster I have ever seen. So very excited about that. We'll be doing cuttings of that this spring. And got to get that out. That's about 22, 23 inches tall, about 3 foot across, and just gorgeous. It was beautiful in bloom, but man, the seed heads are just incredible. Amsonia, it's always great to see Amsonia in the wild. And Amsonia in the wild grows in very deep woods, very deep, and never develops a really nice plant. It's only when it's brought out into the open, into full sun, that it really makes this absolutely gorgeous specimen. So neat to get genetics from an Alabama population. Probably one of the most exciting plants from the trip is another phlox. Very rare, only occurs a small area in Alabama. This is Phlox pulchrum. Very hairy leaves, totally different. Grows on the side of cliffs in this small area. We got some rooted cuttings off this. Planted in the garden. It bloomed every week of the year since. It bloomed all winter long, never stopped. Never seen a phlox like this. And you do pretty well know from something like this, grows on the side of cliffs, good drainage is going to be important. But that one I think has great commercial appeal. I can't find where that's ever been sold, but maybe some small nurseries have sold it, but we're determined to get that one out into the trade as well. Growing near that is this really odd Rudbeckia triloba. Now I've grown Rudbeckia triloba for years. This one growing on the same sheer cliffs, and the leaves are hairy gray. Regular triloba is nothing like this, and this is a subspecies that's native only to one county in Alabama. So it's going to be interesting this year to see that flower and see how that performs in the garden compared to regular triloba. We're heading a little north now. We're going up toward the Birmingham area of Blount County, and we were driving by the road, and always watch out for power cuts, because power cuts have cool stuff. Power cuts simulate wildfires. So in areas where you can't burn anymore, where they do power cuts, you have a lot of plants that normally would get choked out, because as humans, we don't like wildfires because they burn our houses. But all of these plants become successionary that normally wouldn't be successionary, and all the understory plants die out. So on the power cuts, we said, all right, this is a cool power cut. So we got cut areas, plus it's got rocks. So we began walking down the power cuts, and just some incredible rock outcrops. Being an old rock hound, it was just amazing to see these, which I'm pretty sure are alkaline lime rocks. But here we found more interesting trilliums. Now, this again looks a little like cuneatum, but the petals are too narrow. So not really sure what's going on there, because we did find again both staminium and cuneatum, both of what I think are putative parents. So we did find cuneatum. That's one of the best clumps of cuneatum I've ever seen in the wild. That just, I had to take a photo of that. I mean, it was this big and probably 18 inches tall. I mean, wow, that's just stunning. So it's neat to find things like that. Then we found weird stuff, and I think I found more weird trilliums at this site than I've ever found anywhere. This is just odd. Don't know what will happen to that. That's just odd. And then, of course, a solid silver-leafed staminium. Very exciting, because that's and that should come true. That generally trait holds very well in cultivation. It was great as a fern grower to see some of the native pellias. This would be Pellia, probably Atropurpurea, and this is called rock break, because that's where it grows. It always grows in rocks. And that one we've had good luck from some earlier collections of cultivating. Never going to be big and showy. It's not something that's going to get people excited, but it's, you know, for those of us who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing we like. Y'all know who said that? If I ever told you who said it, that's one of the truly great sayings. Abraham Lincoln. That's one of his great quotes that nobody knows. It's actually part of a book review, but it fits very well in horticulture. Little Asplenium here, and we were able to get spores off both of these to bring back. This is a group that I'm really excited about, the toothworts, the dentarius. And I know that doesn't look like much, but you bring those things out of the shade, put them in a little sun in the garden, they are absolutely amazing and in full flower right now. The dentarius or cardamines, as they have been moved by some of the taxonomists. This was really neat. If we walked through this rock area, you could walk 20 feet, the habitat completely changed. So we walked from the trillium area, all of a sudden the trillium disappears, and we got this one little seep. It was like water was bubbling up out of the ground. And we started finding these, and then we found them in flower. The beautiful dodecathions, which now the taxonomists have moved and decided these are actually primroses. I'm not making this up. That is now a primula. Okay, yeah, right, sure. I'm buying that one. And there's a really neat little sedums. This is probably one of the little annual sedums that comes up in vernal rock pools. This is really neat. Another great North Carolina native, Saxifrage virginica. Not a lot of people grow this, but just a cute little, likes moist rocks. We need to get that in cultivation one day. Blount County, a little north of Birmingham now. We went on this area to only get to a point where the bridge was completely washed out. I mean, there's major flooding in the area. But we stopped, and because of the flooding, the whole area was solid with these. These are hymenocallis, the white spider lilies. During early summer, this is just solid white in flower. Just a wonderful plant. If you haven't tried some of the hymen lilies, they're just absolutely amazing. And not a lot in there other than that, so it must have been incredible when they were in bloom. Hanseyville, again, going north, not quite up to Huntsville yet. We went down, I mean, some pretty remote areas, way off the main road, and got into an area, no trespassing, hunting area. Well, okay, if you didn't want me to trespass, why the hell did you put all the trilliums in there? Damn! The best population of Trillium stominium we've seen, just unreal. And just the diversity, just within that population. Look at this one, the leaves. Normally on stominium, the leaves are supposed to be narrow, and yet here are these just insanely wide leaves. This particular one ruffled. Look at that. Just, I mean, that one has almost, it goes almost back to nothing at the base. See how narrow it is at the base as compared to this? It's just fascinating diversity, and those wonderful twisted petals, just absolutely amazing. So neat, right across from that was a steep cliff covered in our native Verbena canadensis. Everybody grows Verbena, but very few people realize it's a native. And to see that here, most of this was in sort of a light lavender. We did get some cuttings of this, got those rooted, and they're looking very good. Also, among that hillside, among the verbenas, is covered in the wonderful Erythronium rostratum. It was just in buds, so we just did miss the flowers, but with a very large yellow flowers. Just amazing, and growing almost in the rocks. Madison County, so we're heading north now. We're up in the Huntsville area, and we stopped to visit this fellow who I'd met on the internet. This is Harold Holmes. And if you don't know much about Huntsville, it's a fascinating area. It's populated almost entirely by rocket scientists. This is where they developed all the NASA rockets, everything. So pretty much everybody there is retired from rocket science engineering or missiles or something like this. Well, Harold was no exception. So Harold, when he retired, he wanted to do something completely different. So he began gardening with his wife, and also began volunteering here at the new Huntsville Botanic Garden. This is one of the very new gardens. It's less than 20 years old. And what they did, they built it incredibly fast because they built it primarily on volunteers. They realized they had thousands of retired rocket scientists. And they said, these people are pretty sharp. So they got them to come in, and they got each of them to decide what project they wanted and just basically take it and run with it. So they really pretty much worked for themselves. Harold decided his retirement project would be trilliums. So Harold has decided he's growing every trillium from seed and studying the germination, the diversity. It's just incredible. This is one of his cold frames where he's just putting in some new pots. This is some of his trillium seedlings. Yes, that's what I said. After walking through about 10 greenhouses just slammed full of more trilliums than you can see. One retired missile scientist was doing deciduous azaleas, raising those from seed. Another one was doing acerums from seed. Unbelievable stuff. Just amazing. And just looking through his stuff at some of the diversity, how about that nice yellow leaf one? Harold shared a lot, but he wouldn't share that one. He said he didn't see what became of that, and I can't say I blame him. That was pretty neat there. They took us out in the garden. This is a yellow-flowered Trillium stominium, the only one known to exist anywhere in the world. So it's the cool things you find when you get out in the woods and then when you grow that many things from seed. He's got his first crops blooming, but with all the seedlings, within the next 5 to 6 years, he's going to have millions blooming, and the diversity to be able to choose from is truly going to be mind-boggling. Harold also got into acerums a little bit, which is fascinating. He was showing me some of his. Well, this is Acerum shuttleworthii, which all of us know, except the flower's wrong. It's very wrong. It's not just a little wrong. And I've pretty much seen every species in the wild, and that is nothing I've ever seen. So we're trying to track back where he originally found that, because something is just, that's something new. That's not Shuttleworthii. Well then, he shows me this is real Shuttleworthii. Look at the flower. That is a quarter. That is bigger than a $50. That's insane for a native asarum. They don't get that big. It's just not possible. So whether this is a tetraploid or just a giant, we don't know. But he's promised to get us divisions off these so we can get these propagated. How about that for a native asarum aerifolium? I've seen tens of thousands of aerifolium in the wild. Never seen anything like that. The aerifolium, the flowers don't open that big. They're not that colored. The leaves are perfect, the classic aerifolium, but where he found that, this is actually from Walhalla, South Carolina, and I've botanized Walhalla. I never found anything like that. That is just incredible. So there's another asarum that we need to get into cultivation. Then this one, that's also our native asarum aerifolium. Where the heck did that come from? I mean, this is really embarrassing for somebody to spend as much time in the wild, and I go there to this garden and I'm seeing things that I have never even thought of seeing. So very exciting, and he is willing to work with us to get these into tissue culture. But man, some just insanely cool selections of some of our great natives. The next day he offered to take us to one of his favorite areas just north of Huntsville, an area called Newton Sinks. And this is an area where they have massive limestone sinks where the ground opens up and just swallows all the water. One area he found was being logged, and he got permission from the logging company to go on there and get whatever he wanted, because pretty much it's dead. This is Trillium flexipes from that site. It was just logged last year. Just incredible. Huge leaves, just amazing. I found a nice variegated one there, which did come back with us. We'll see if it comes back up variegated. Sometimes that's a one-year thing, so I don't want to get too excited too early. And growing side by side here with Staminium. That's always cool to me when you find two species of the same genera going side by side. Here with the wonderful black cohosh, which was just coming into bloom. Very cool to see a southern population of this, Allium tricornis. Anybody know Allium tricornis? Very popular in western North Carolina. It's called ramps. And normally it grows at elevations we can't grow. And I'm really optimistic that we can grow this form from Huntsville. And I went a little further, and what did I find? A variegated ramps. So what else can we name this? We call this one on-off. I knew somebody would get it. Just an amazing area here with the wonderful resurrection fern growing off some of the rocks, and always neat to get new populations of that. And then the next area we went to was an area in that area called Beaches Flats. Now this is a logging site. It hadn't been logged for a while, and how anybody found this, I don't know, because this is what you see from the main road. And he's like, well, we need to walk down this path. So we walked and we walked and we walked. Where is this guy taking us? Because this is not particularly exciting. I don't generally look for kudzu as a place to go into the woods. And so here we go, and we found the flat, found the sinks, beautiful, large segments of lime. And again, the water just goes into this giant hole in the ground and then disappears. I've just always found sinks amazing. All around it, that is solid trilliums. Now we were there about 4 to 5 days before they opened. He sent me a photo a few days later. There's the same area. Unreal. We walked for 2 hours and did not see the end of the trilliums. As far as I could see. This is Trillium flexipes. Also in the same area, Trillium staminium growing side by side. And just to be able to walk through the diversity was just beyond incredible. Look at the staminiums. Just every form under the sun. Just amazing opportunity. And again, the logging folks let them come in there and pretty much do what you want. I always thought the idea of being able to sustainably harvest trilliums was a misnomer. I said, there's just no way you could sustainably harvest. After seeing this, I've changed my mind. You could sustainably harvest easily for 1,000 years on this site and not even make a dent in it. It was just beyond anything I was able to comprehend. Within the area, we found even variegated staminiums. Again, we'll see what comes out of these. Just some gorgeous Erythema quinatums with this beautiful black stem. This particular one, a division of that did come home with us. I mean, look at the just absolutely amazing forms in there. A little darker leaf of the native tipularia. This excited me. That's bloodroot. That is the coolest bloodroot I've ever seen. Look at that. Normally, bloodroot has a few lobes. This thing is like pick and shears bloodroot. I mean, there. Look at this. Isn't that just amazing? Normally, you don't see that type scallops. And so we were able to make a couple selections, and I'm very excited. I know bloodroot only flowers for a short time, but now we've got this fascinating foliage. The erythroniums here were in bloom. This is the same one we collected earlier, the giant flowered Erythronium rostratum. Oh man, what a beautiful thing to see patches of these in flower. More interesting phlox. Again, we think we'll have to key these out, probably that same weird pilosa. Grows in shade, stays sort of dumpy, bring it out in sun, it makes this incredible clump. And then leaving there, we had to make one more stop. You know, the things on the road just sort of jump out at you. So here we are side the road and looked out, and here's more verbena, and this is more of a pink form. And we got looking around, all in amongst the verbena was, well, there's a little close-up of the verbena. More of the wonderful rock breaks, the pellia, growing again right in the rocks. They're a very aptly common name. And our native deciduous agave, Manfreda virginica. Only the second time I've seen that in the wild. Growing right with the verbena. Just really neat to see that one again. This is a much wider leaf. What I've normally seen in the wild was very narrow. And here these leaves were probably close to 4 inches wide at the base. And then starting to head back, Jefferson County, this is up just north of Birmingham, a little town called Pinson. I've been to years earlier. Trillium decumbens, as far as I can see. This one's so cool because decumbens means lays flat. This one has basically a flat stem. So the leaves touch the forest floor. Just an amazing, amazing plant growing here with all kinds of neat wildflowers, hepaticas, etc. That's just gorgeous. That's just, and they're like cyclamen. Every one is so unique and so different. We were very excited. A friend we met there, Hayes Jackson, had just found this, and he said, well, I found the albino form, which nobody had ever found. And he gave me his plants. He said, you'll do better with this than I am. We brought them back, planted them. They opened today, red. I was so excited about this. I mean, they're still okay, but we're back now on the search to find the albino or the yellow flower. Because we know it exists. It's just a matter of finding. All these variants, you go out with the idea of we will find this. And once you look for it, it's amazing what you find. So my quest is back on for the yellow or albino decumbens. Again, some amazing things there that sort of cuniated me, but I think we need to look at these Alabama trilliums some more. So we finished up at this site, and there was a steep hill to get back to the road. So we're struggling up in the rocks, you know, we're slipping. So I reach out to grab this broken off tree to get out. And when I got up, I looked, and damn, it's a variegated tulip poplar. We did take cuttings. They did not survive. I have GPS readings of this tree. We will go back and get this. There is one in the tray, but hey, it's nice to have another one. We never have too many variegated tulip poplars. And then last stop in Alabama was in Anniston over on the northeast side. Wanted to stop. Hayes had taken us to this wonderful population of Trillium lancifolium, which has always fascinated me because lancifolium is named because it has lance foliage. But the population here, it had some lance, but it also had some much wider leaf forms. And that's odd. I don't know what to think of this yet. We want to wait and grow them out a few years and see these bloom and see if we've got something different. There was a lancifolium population in South Carolina, right on the interstate. But for years, everybody thought it was just a wide-leaf lancifolium. And then when Chick Gaddy started looking at it about 10 years ago, he realized it was a brand new species growing right on the interstate that nobody had ever realized was new. So you always want to keep looking because you never know what you'll find. So there's just a little bit of diversity. Look at the back. See that one clone? See how wide those leaves are? Not convinced. Something's not going on there. So we brought back pieces off that clone. We'll see what they turn into. And then crossing just over the line. This is something I'd heard about in one of our internet chat groups. We have a group that just talks about trilliums. And one woman had said, well, her group had gone into this site and done some plant rescues because this was in danger. She said, so we stopped, just like she told us, here at the Quick Loop. And we're eyeing this spot right here across the street. It's been developed on top, developed on every side except this one. So we cross over there, and that looks really promising, doesn't it? And then you look down the road, well, that's obviously nothing down there. So up we went into the bushes, crossed through the thick underbrush to find this. Trillium luteum. Just an amazing entire hillside. Hundreds of thousands of Trillium luteum. I can only imagine what got developed and is no longer there. But the opportunity to walk through this and just look again at the diversity was incredible. Just an amazing species. Here would be more of the, what I would call typical forms. Here, again, narrow petaled, narrow leaves, much smaller than what we would see. And here, much wider than normal, just insanely wide. I mean, 6-inch plus wide leaves. Here, solid silver forms, no modeling whatsoever. And this is sort of what I like to collect. I look for a solid silver version of every model trillium. That's sort of one of the goals when you go out in the area. Now here, your eye goes to this Trillium luteum, but now follow your eye up here. What do we find? A red Trillium luteum. Trillium luteum doesn't occur in red. It's not possible, but there it is, because there was no other sessile trillium at the site. So that's really neat, and we actually found probably a dozen or so red luteums there. So we got a couple of those, and those are back with us. That's really exciting. And here we found sort of a bicolor. So this is where maybe the red went and then crossed back onto the yellow. And then, of course, a yellow Trillium luteum. This is a really luteum, yellow foliage. We'll see if that one. We'll see if that comes back. That would not survive very long in the wild because it's got a chlorophyll deficiency that's pretty obvious. Some beautiful. This is more of those little dentarias. This one has got the most silver leaves I've ever seen. The knee leaves are normally green, but silver leaves with silver veins. Oh man. I really like these. Never be really commercial because they flower right now when nobody's really in garden centers. But man, they're just incredible to me. And then one last stop, this to see a brand new trillium that was been discovered, not even named yet. This is the Amicola, I can't even say it, trillium. And this is, so we stopped looking for it. First thing we found was this great population of Trillium cuneatum. Again, something's weird here. That's cuneatum. That's not. But that's not supposed to be anything else there. But see how much narrower the petals are? See, the leaves are a little more pointed. There's something going on there. Not sure what, but something. Oh man, the diversity of this site was just incredible of trilliums. Look at this. That again, that's supposed to be cuneatum. There's not supposed to be anything else there. I'm not buying it. I think some stominiums have snuck in there, and I think there's been some horticultural hanky-panky going on. I'm sorry, that's just not regular diversity. There's something weird happening there. And then, this is something I started collecting years ago. I call these uniliums. This is where something happens to the trillium genetically, and it only produces single leaves. So far, I've got 2 species I've had for over a decade, and they run. They never flower, but they only produce 1 leaf. So I'm determined now to find 1-leaf forms of every sessile trillium. It may take a while, but we'll see if this comes back up 1 leaf again this year. We're hopeful. So we're still in the same area, right on the line. They were still looking. We went up to the Amicola area, but that was so high elevation that the trilliums weren't up. But I heard from another friend that if you go right on the South Carolina-Georgia line, the same plant's there. So here we are, we've stopped right on the state line. And my friend described it when he went into the site. Here we are on the Bartram Trail. We're starting down the trail. First thing we see, Trillium cuneatum. There's no luteum here. Luteum has got a lemon fragrance. So what do we find? Cuneatum, we found yellow cuneatums. They're not supposed to be yellow cuneatums. It's only supposed to be red cuneatums. Well, this site, I mean, they did not read the books because there was just tons of yellow cuneatums. So that was very exciting. And then we found this. As my friend described it, he crossed the bridge one day. He looked out there and he said, well, WTF. So he got out and he now calls these Trillium WTFs. And basically this is probably going to be a new species. They haven't got a name for it. But it's basically a dwarf Catesbyite. It flowers much earlier than Catesbyite. And I think for years everybody assumed it was. But it's absolutely not. It grows at 2 sites here on the river and then up at Amicola Falls. So it's going to be really neat to see what comes out of this. But that's sort of the end. I know I've gone on a long time, but I hope that gives you a little idea for those of you that haven't spent time in the wild. The just incredible, wonderful diversity and what potential is out there if people can simply keep their eyes open. Thank you very much.